Hello and welcome. So today we're going to be taking a close look at the SentinelOne EDR agent within the SolarWinds and Central solution. What we're going to show today is a ransomware scenario in order to show what the remediation capabilities, like the rollback function, actually looks like. In order to do that, we're going to go ahead and run the agent in what we call detect only mode, which will effectively alert on the malicious activity, but we will not automatically respond to that activity. Just note, normally we would kill and quarantine any threats that we see when running in protect mode. We're just using this mode for the demonstration. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our Windows 10 workstation. As you can see here, I have my email open in a web browser, and I have an email awaiting me to open an invoice. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And almost immediately after opening the document, we can see that the SentinelOne agent is alerting on it that something is wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize the document, and that way we can actually watch the attack go through, and we'll revisit what the attack actually did when we take a look at the forensics page. At this stage, we can see that the data in the sensitive folder here was completely deleted off the system. We can see that the rest of the data on the endpoint, so we have the documents and the pictures here, are also now encrypted, and we can also see the ransomware note left by the attacker. So let's go ahead and pivot into the console and take a look at actually what happened on the endpoint. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pivot into the Analyze page here underneath the EDR tab. And as you can see, we've run into this attack a few different times, but I want to take a look at the new one, which has not yet been resolved. So we'll go ahead and investigate the Word doc that we opened. And right away, we can see some pretty useful information. Number one, we can see some basic details about the attack. We can see some basic details about the endpoint. If necessary, we can also go in and actually isolate the endpoint on the network. You can also bring it back from here. But on the right, we can also see some other pretty useful information, such as the actual behavioral indicators that were flagged throughout this attack. So just by going through a couple of these, we can see pretty quickly that this was likely the work of the Metasploit framework. We can see that the document that was initially alerted on was definitely not doing something right. We can see some privilege escalation, UAC bypass being used. And we can also see some ransomware-like behavior here, like trying to delete shadow copies or data getting encrypted. In order to get an even closer look at this, what we're going to go ahead and do is jump into the Explore tab, and this will actually give us a closer look as to what actually happened on the endpoint from more of a bird's eye view. So here, we can go ahead and actually expand each process, so we can see when the Word document actually opened, which document it was, where it was located, and we can also see exactly what this process was doing at that time, whether it's files that were being edited, network actions that were occurring, so on and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and expand the process tree here. So the interesting part is we can see the Word document effectively spawning another process that looks a little weird, and we can actually dive deeper into this process and see exactly what it's doing. So, for instance, what might look a little weird is the fact that once Word opened and spawned this, it started communicating out to a C2 server on the network. And if I keep looking through it, we can see other information such as FOD helper being used as part of the UAC bypass. We can see a PowerShell session being used to do other things, such as drop and execute 7-zip. You may have noticed during the attack that there was a zip file created in the sensitive folder. And if we take a look at this PowerShell session and take a look at the network activities, again, we can see C2 communication. So from this, we can most likely assume that there's some sort of data exfiltration for that sensitive directory here. Now, if we take a closer look at this CRAB process here, this is the actual ransomware. And what we can actually see is we can see all of the different files that it either deleted, dropped to the system, or encrypted as part of the attack. And we can also see its attempt to go in and actually delete shadow copies. So without a doubt, this is definitely something malicious. So I'm going to go ahead and, as the analyst, we're going to mark it as a true positive. And we're going to go ahead and respond to this attack. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and tell it to kill the processes in the storyline that were part of the attack. We'll go ahead and quarantine any files that were dropped to the system. Remediate, we'll go ahead and clean out any registry keys that were added, persistence mechanisms, files dropped, and we'll go ahead and roll back any data that got deleted, encrypted, or altered as part of the threat. So I'm going to go ahead and click apply. And if we're quick enough here, we should be able to make it back and actually watch it recover all of the files on the endpoint. Not just the ones that were encrypted, but also the ones that were deleted. And with that, we have a completely restored system, and the end user is good to go.